Good morning, Year 9. Today we're going to continue looking at solving inequalities, and we're going to cover two areas today, which is the first one where we've got an unknown on both sides, so an x on both sides for your inequality, and then the second one, which we've touched on already, but where we're involving fractions within our inequality as well. Okay, so our first set of questions then that we're going to have a go at. So you can see here I've got unknowns, I've got x's on both sides. So we want to avoid dividing by or multiplying by a negative number, because like we saw last time, when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you need to flip the symbol. So we want to avoid needing to do that. It doesn't matter if you do, but it's easier not to. So the rule we always want to follow is to move the smaller number of x. So first of all, we need to move all the x's onto the same side of the equation. So I've got 5x here on the left-hand side, and I've got 2x on the right-hand side. So 2x is smaller than 5x, so it's the 2x that I'm going to move. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides of my inequality. So I then end up with 5x take away 2x, which is 3x. I've still got that plus 3 greater than or equal to. I've lost this 2x, but I've still got a negative 9 on the right-hand side. So I then need to solve it now like I would do normally. So I've got this add 3 here, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So I then end up with 3x is greater than or equal to, if I'm starting at minus 9 and I take away another 3, I end up with minus 12. I then need to divide both sides by 3. And so then we get x is greater than or equal to 12 divided by 3 is 4, but it was a negative, so x is greater than or equal to negative 4. I'd like you to pause this video now and have a go at the question on the right hand side. Okay, so looking at this question here then, we've got a 2x on the left and 10x on the right. So I want to move the smaller number of x to avoid getting too many negatives. So 2x is smaller than 10x. So I'm going to move the 2x over to join the 10x. So I've subtracted 2x from both sides. That's got rid of this 2x on the left-hand side, and I had 10x take away 2x, so I'm left with 8x on the right-hand side. Then I can carry on as normal like we have in previous lessons. So I've got an add 1 here, so I subtract 1 from both sides. And then I've got a times by 8, so I divide both sides by 8. We end up with an inequality where the x is on the right-hand side. We prefer to have it on the left-hand side, so I'm just going to rewrite my answer as x, and then the big part needs to stay next to the x, so x is greater than or equal to 2. Okay, so these questions we're asked to do something slightly extra at the end, but other than that it's quite similar. So having a look at this one then, I've got 1 take away 2x is greater than or equal to x, add 13. So I need to follow the same rule again. I need to move the smaller number of x. So on the left hand side I've got negative 2x's. Okay, that negative 2 has to stick with the x. So I've got negative 2x here and I've got x here. So negative 2 lots of x or minus 2 lots of x is smaller, is less than 1x. If you think on your number line, negative 2 is lower on your number line than 1. So it's the negative 2x that we're going to move here. So I need to move minus 2x. So to move a kind of subtract 2x, I need to add 2x to both sides this time. So on the left hand side I've got rid of this negative 2x, so I'm just left with the 1 there. And then on the right hand side I had an x, I've added on 2x, so I end up with 3x, add 13. So I now need to subtract the 13 on both sides. So I'm at 1, I take away 13, I end up down at negative 12, greater than or equal to 3x, and then just divide by 3 to finish that part. So then minus 12 divided by 3, negative 4 is greater than or equal x. So we prefer to rewrite that as x is less than or equal to -4. So if we think about our number line, we're told that x is less than or equal to -4. So my possible options for x, if I'm thinking about an integer, would be -4, -5, -6, -7. So it says write down the largest possible integer value of x. So it could be -4, -5, -6. So the largest of those answers is -4. So my final answer for that one is -4. Pause this video now and then have a go at the one on the right hand side, which is similar. Okay, so for this example then, we had -3x's on the left and -5x's on the right. So if we think about our number line, -3 is bigger than -5. So -5 is the smallest one, so I want to move my smaller number of x. So I need to move this -5x. So that's why I've added 5x to both sides. So I started with -3 x's here and I added on 5 of them. So if I started at -3 on the number line, go up by 5, I get +2 x's. Then I need to proceed kind of as normal, which you're used to. So now I needed to subtract 5 from both sides and divide both sides by 2. So I now know that x can be anything greater than 2. It can't be equal to 2. So my integer values that it could be is anything greater than 2. So 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So it says write down the smallest possible integer value. So it can't be 2. So the next smallest integer value it could be would be 3. So my final answer for that one is 3. I would now like you to complete worksheet 1, which can be found on Show My Homework, that looks a little bit like this. So pause this video now and spend about 10-15 minutes working through those questions and then mark your answers, please. Okay, so now moving on to some inequalities involving fractions. So I'm going to complete these two questions on the left-hand side first. You'll notice these questions are very similar. The only difference is on the second one, my fraction line finishes earlier than it does on the first one. So on the first one, the add 3 is part of the fraction, whereas it's not on the second one. So for this example on the top, the first thing I need to remove is the divide by 2. So first thing here that I need to remove, because the fraction line goes over everything, I need to, times by 2 to get rid of the divide by 2 to begin with. So I'm then left with a add 3 is greater than or equal to 5 times 2, 10. I then need to subtract the 3 from both sides. So I end up with a is greater than or equal to 10 take away 3, which is 7. Okay, whereas this second one here, because the add 3 isn't part of the fraction, it's happened after the divide by 2. So that means we need to remove the +3 to begin with. So the first step for this question is to subtract 3 from both sides. So a over 2 is greater than or equal to 5 take away 3, which is 2. I then need to, my second step is to get rid of the divide by 2, so I need to times by 2, times by 2. So a is greater than or equal to 4. Please pause this video now and have a go at the questions on the right hand side. Okay, so for the first question on the right hand side, the first thing you needed to get rid of is the takeaway 2. So you should have added 2 to both sides as your first step. Then we need to get rid of the divide by 7, so times both sides by 7, so x is less than 35. Whereas for the second one, we needed to get rid of this divide by 7 first, so I needed to times both sides by 7. Then I needed to get rid of the subtract 2, so I've added 2 to both sides, and so I get x is less than 23. Okay, last set of questions to have a look at them, just an extra step in these. So this first one, the fraction line, is over everything. So because it's over everything, I need to get rid of this divide by 3 to begin with. So I'm going to times by 3, times by 3, times by 3. So 2x add 1 is less than or equal to 4 times 3, which is 12. Then I need to get rid of my plus 1, so I subtract 1. So 2x is less than or equal to 11, and then divide both sides by 2. We'll get a decimal for this one, which is fine. X is less than or equal to 11 divided by 2, 5.5. So this question nearly identical, but this time the fraction line isn't over the plus 1. So for this one, we need to get rid of the plus 1 to begin with. 2x over 3 is less than or equal to 4 take away 1, which is 3. Then I need to multiply both sides by 3. 2x is less than or equal to 9, and then divide both sides by 2. X is less than or equal to 9 divided by 2, 4.5. Please pause this video now and have a go at the two questions on the right hand side. Okay, having a look at these ones on the right hand side then. So for the first one, the fraction line doesn't go over the takeaway 3. So you should have added 3 to both sides as your first step, then multiplied by 3 to get rid of the divide by 3, and then divided by 10 as your last step. Whereas for the second one, the divide by 3 is over everything. So the first thing you need to get rid of is the divide by 3 by timesing by 3. So we should have then got 6 on the right hand side. Then we needed to add 3 to both sides and then divide by 10. So x is less than 0.9. Can you please now spend about 15 minutes having a go at worksheet number 2, which you'll find on Show My Homework, and then mark your answers, which are also there.